John Ulzheimer is known as one of our nation's most recognized credit experts. Having worked for 28 years in the credit industry, John has become one of the most prolific speakers about credit and the go-to authority on answers to credit-related questions. Credit Countdown with John Ulzheimer.
Hello, this is John Ulzheimer. I am a consumer credit expert. Spent almost 30 years of experience in the credit industry. Spent time at FICO, which is the company behind the FICO credit scoring system, and Equifax, which is one of the 3 generally recognized credit reporting agencies in the United States. So today I'm going to answer a question that I get from consumers who have kind of marginal credit. They keep hearing the term risk averse, risk assessment, risk-based pricing. They keep hearing all these terms that have the word risk in them. And logically or reasonably, the question that they have is what does it mean to be a risky borrower? Well, I'm going to give you some answers as to what that means, what it means to be a risky borrower. So risk, as far as borrower risk, is something that is assessed by a lender whenever you make some sort of an application. So for example, you fill out an application for a credit card or a loan, and the lender wants to know a few things about you before they're willing to do business with you. Number one, they want to know that you can afford to make the payments. That's how they check your capacity. That's where they want to get information about your income and your ability to make the payments. If it's a loan, they want to get information about the collateral, meaning that if you want to borrow money to buy a house, the loan has to be in line with the value of the home. And so, for example, if you want to borrow $1 million to buy a house, but your house is only worth $500,000, then the value of your home isn't appropriate for the amount of money that you're trying to borrow. Then the last thing they want to check is your creditworthiness, and this is where the credit risk assessment comes in. So what does it mean to be a risky borrower from a credit perspective? So risky from a credit perspective indicates some sort of indication that there's a possibility that you are not going to make payments on time on some sort of a credit obligation. There are some lenders who have very, very little tolerance for elevated credit risk. Like, for example, American Express, they don't have a subprime high-risk product. So if you've got lousy credit scores, you don't even need to apply for an American Express card because you're not going to get approved. Where other banks like Credit One Bank, they target consumers who are risky borrowers, and they do have products for those consumers. So to be a risky borrower doesn't necessarily mean that you are frozen out of the credit market entirely. It just means that your options are going to be limited. Not only are your options going to be limited, but the companies with whom you can do business, that is also going to be limited, because there are going to be fewer banks that are going to be have the tolerance for the level of risk that you pose. So let's talk about kind of how do you equate your credit score to elevated risk. So ultimately, it's up to a bank to determine what is an acceptable credit score and what is not an acceptable credit score. But generally speaking, consumers who have scores 760 or higher, this is FICO or Vantage score, 760 or higher should put you in the sweet spot for pretty much any type of credit that you apply for. So that would mean mortgages, credit cards, auto loans, whatever. 760 and above, and you're pretty much golden, which is going to include everybody who gets all the way up to 850. So you kind of see that once you hit 760, then you really can't do any better, even though your score can be considerably higher. That's for mortgages. For auto loans, it's actually lower, so 720 and higher, and you're very likely to get whatever loan it is for which you're applying at a very, very good, if not the best, interest rate. Those are low-risk borrowers because they've got very, very good scores. Consumers who have scores below that are going to be some sort of elevated credit risk. They may not be an unacceptable credit risk, but they're certainly going to be an elevated credit risk. When you start getting down below 710, now you're starting to get below the national average score. So the national average score, which tends to move over time, has been going up for quite a while actually, and it's actually over 710 at this point, closer to 715, which is actually pretty good because most consumers would consider a score of 715 to be a pretty good score, when in reality it's actually just an average score. Anything below that is going to be below average and is going to indicate some sort of elevated level of risk. And it's going to be much harder for that particular person to get approved for credit because the odds of them defaulting or going delinquent on the obligation may be too high for the lender to stomach. So hopefully that helps answer some questions about what it means to be a risky borrower. If you have any other questions, drop them in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to get to them. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day. We'll talk again soon.
For more videos and credit tips from John Ulzheimer, go to www.tradelinesupply.com.